Listen-only mode.
Thank you for joining our presentation on using an iPad for business development. We'll get started shortly. If you have any technical issues, please contact our main line at 206-340-8201. And if you would like to tweet during the presentation, use the hashtag #LexBlog. Thank you.
Good morning from Seattle. Good afternoon where you are. If you're having, this is Kevin O'Keefe. I'm going to do a presentation that I've been doing individually for coaching different individual lawyers, law firms, and that I just did in Indiana the end of last week regarding an iPad for business development. If you're having any problems at all, either hearing me or seeing the presentation, I'll call our main line at LexBlog and we'll jump on that and get that dealt for you right away. Main number is 206-340-8201. Going forward in the presentation, what I want to do, right off the get-go is to get everybody to realize what we're talking about. We're not talking about using an iPad to broadcast and spread information per se. That's not the goal. There may be portions of it that you may be using an iPad to share what you're reading, share insight that you may want to provide, on various social media platforms and social networks. But the end goal is not to push information out to people to get them to come to your website or your blog, etc. The goal is to build relationships and further enhance your reputation. So throughout, the things that we want to be thinking about are, strategy. Why am I doing this? Who's the target audience that I'm looking to reach? How am I networking with the people that I really want to get to? And not just networking for the sake of networking. Am I listening before that I'm sharing information? Because listening is more important than sharing information. We're going to talk about LinkedIn for networking, not just LinkedIn for purposes of having a profile. We're going to talk about using an iPad for blogging in an engaging fashion. We're going to talk about Twitter with the end goal being to learn, to become an intelligence agent. We're going to talk about Facebook for nurturing relationships, and then Google Plus, not only to network, but for purposes of establishing your authority on Google. What you need to be focused on to begin with is the concept of RSS. Now, all these things may not be called RSS, but I think the LexBlog community members are operating a little bit higher degree than most lawyers at large. When I asked, 150 lawyers in Indiana last Friday, how many people were using RSS or using a reader, there were really very, very few. There were a couple or three people, and they looked around and they were really shocked that the rest of the people weren't, in tune with that. I don't want to waste everybody's time, with just that perfunctory issue, but it's just really important as any lawyers that are regularly not using RSS to understand the value of it. Bear with me one second. I've got get the Bluetooth working on my iPad. But the concept is, rather than have information come to you the old way, where you have to go out and get it, you're now getting information sent to you from websites and blogs that you would want to get information from. And I know some of you are going to say, well, gee, I know all about this. Well, there's a whole lot of people that don't know all about it. But the idea is to be thinking, if I go to the New York Times, rather than have to browse the New York Times to get information, I could have the New York Times send me information. And all these applications I'm going to show you are either based on RSS feeds or Twitter feeds of getting information out. But the idea is, at the New York Times, I could go to a page at the Times, and I'm always looking for that little orange symbol, and at the bottom, it's going to be RSS on the New York Times. They're going to have a whole page of RSS feeds. So if I want to get information coming out on business matters, they've got 12 separate RSS feeds, which mean I can subscribe to that information and come out to me. So this RSS is not an illusory thing out there that's only for geeks or whatnot. This is for really busy people. Those of you that have a lot of time, that you get lots of time to waste. You're not using RSS because you try to remember where you browsed, you did a search. You're not looking for information to come to you from sources that you trust. You're just willing to go, willy-nilly around the internet trying to find what you want, and maybe you bookmark it and have to go that way. With the rest of us, are having information fed to us on an iPad, an iPhone, or to our desktop and readers. So RSS is a really important concept to always take into account when we're talking about using an iPad for business development, because you're too busy to get out and look for information as it goes. I do all of my presentations now on an iPad, so it's a little bit clumsy here where we're taking the iPad and broadcasting on to GoToMeeting, but it's not bad. But if I'm hooked up to a presentation in a room, it's really excellent. I do all my presentations with an iPad. I don't travel with a computer anymore. I just don't see the need to do so. And when I'm walking around Chicago earlier this week for various meetings, the only thing I'm carrying with me is a pen and my iPad because it's got everything I need to talk to people about things. The next thing I want to talk about is Google Alerts. They're invaluable because think about RSS as bringing you the information that you'd like to see, and you need this information because it's the currency of engagement. I can't engage anybody without content. Well, on the internet, it's content that comes to you in multiple ways. It's coming from sources, so I subscribe to that source at the New York Times, or it can come to me on subjects. I'm monitoring particular subjects. And Google Alerts is where you really get that great information that you're monitoring subjects that are invaluable to your niche. And I want to show you what I do when I go to Google Alerts. So what I'm doing is I set up Google Alerts. So all you have to do to find Google Alerts is do Google Alerts. You're going to find it. And then you log in under your Gmail name. If you don't have a Gmail account, you get one. It's like having a social security number. You can't operate on the internet without it in many respects because you're going to be interfacing with Google, and you need to be able to log in with your Gmail account. What you're doing then is thinking about, what would I like to follow for particular terms? And it could be anything. So let's say that I'm an employment lawyer and I want to follow, FMLA. So that way, if there's any information that comes out on FMLA anywhere, I can see it for two reasons. One, it makes me a better lawyer. I'm staying up to speed with what's going on. It allows me to better converse with my clients because my clients that are HR directors and people dealing with employment issues, if I'm doing employment work, they might be aware of this. If they're not aware of it, I can be an intelligence agent by sharing this information on various social networks. If I'm blogging, I don't want to have to think up what the next thing to write on is. But if I see a good article on FMLA that comes out of the Dallas Morning News or the Los Angeles Times, or the Wall Street Journal, or the New York Times, I may never have seen that. How would I have known about that if I didn't set up a feed? So then what I'm doing is I'm going to look at the settings. Do I want everything? And I'd say, yeah, I want everything. And what this means is everything means news, blogs, video, discussions, books, etc. Don't worry, you're not going to get deluged with goofy video and discussions and books. But what it is saying is, I'll take the content that Google is indexing. I'll take it all. So that's everything. How often do I want it? And we'll get to this thing to work, hopefully. Well, I don't want it once a day, and I'll show you why. I want it as it happens. As it happens, I want it coming to me. Do I want everything? Do I just only want the best results? I want only the best results. And think about the best results, meaning coming from the most influential sources. Because if you're going to monitor something on FMLA, you don't need every non-influential blog, some employment lawyer that's trying to spam the internet using keywords to be coming into your feeds. You want the good stuff. And believe me, this works, and I'll show you examples in a minute of how I do it. And then you'd say, where do I want this coming to? Well, I sure don't want it coming to email because I'm getting about 500 emails a day, and it'll deluge me. And it might be a day or two before I open it up, even look at it. That email could be buried below 1,500 emails. I don't need it, among the pile of starred or flagged emails. So I say is send it to my feed because I want it coming to my feeds of information. Think of that RSS feed. I'm now enabling an RSS feed that is coming to me. If anybody has any questions too, they can key them into the box. I believe Lottie, you'll be able to see them, and then Lottie will be able to ask me, or throw out questions to me. But now you're now seeing a page is my Google Alerts. After I said save that one, I went and tested this before. So you see three sitting here from FMLA, and I'll delete it later. But only the best results as it happens. Have it come over to my Google Reader. And we'll talk about Google Reader at the end because Google Reader is going away in 30 days. But it's all right that you're stored here because you're going to retrieve them into other applications. They're going to keep them after Google Reader goes away. But if I want to edit this later, I can do so, change it, say, I don't want this one anymore. I could check a box there, go to the bottom and delete it. This is where I store all the things I'm monitoring because I find it more powerful to monitor subjects than sources. So I just don't know who's going to talk about all the different things that I might have an interest in, and I only want the influential. I only want the good stuff from Google. And Google's been so kind to provide me only the good stuff. So you're going to see things in here that I may be monitoring, advanced publications. It's a big, it has Condé Nast and other publications by the Newhouse family. You'd think I'm nuts, but I monitor the term blog. I only get information from influential sources on it. I monitor Bloomberg Law that's out there doing legal publishing. I put in some terms in here for clients when I was out coaching them as to what I thought they should monitor. But you can see the type of terms that I'm monitoring. They're very general terms, and Google hasn't betrayed me. Social network, social networking. I think I even monitor the term networking. Look at networking. And it's giving me just the most influential news and information. This stuff is invaluable. So you really want to tune in your Google Alerts to what subjects do I want to monitor. And if you really want to knock the ball out of the park and you're not so afraid, many lawyers are so afraid, oh my God, if I focus it on a niche, I'll never get any work from these other things. The lawyers that are focusing in the niche are earning 7 figures a year because they've gone out and become an intelligence agent and become a trusted, reliable authority on niches, and they're becoming darn good lawyers on niches. So if you want to say, okay, I'm just going to be doing this type, I'm going to blog on just this subject regarding my state's law or this circuit, and monitor certain cases, you would get known. You'd start to be relied on an authority. And monitoring these subjects from Google Alerts will get you a long way in going in that direction. So Google Alerts, is one of the areas that you begin. You can subscribe by RSS to sources by hitting that orange button on a blog. That'll bring it into your reader. I'll show you how you can bring them in directly into other readers as we go. Then Google Alerts is the next thing you want to be looking at and be using on a regular basis. I'm using right now my iPad with a Apple keyboard, and it's cheap. I don't key very fast, so I'm still in the days where get out a couple fingers and I'm pecking around, and it's got me by for the last however many years I've been using the internet since '96. It'll get me another 17 years till I'm 80 years old. But this case and this keyboard really work, and so you might already have the keyboard sitting at your desk. Maybe you got to buy another one. This case, I think, costs 20 bucks. It's great. It really works. The Velcro might give out, and you just replace the Velcro with something else. But I swear by this thing. So it allows me to use my iPad better than my desktop. And I'm not using my iPad just because it's lighter and easier to carry around. I'm using it because the applications on my desktop kind of suck compared to the applications on my iPad. And think about it. You're graduating from, Stanford Engineering School, Carnegie Mellon, you're bright, you're an engineer, and somebody says, hey, would you like to come over and build some old applications or update applications for machines that are dying and going away? Of course you don't. You're building applications for mobile. So the amount of investment, the amount of time, the amount of talent that's going into applications for mobile is more, I believe, today than is going into old applications that are sitting at your desktop. So you can say, well, gee, I'd like to sit on my desktop. I'd like to use a laptop. That's okay. The experience probably isn't going to be as good for either consuming content, sharing content, or networking. This is just my opinion. Than you're going to get on an iPad. If you don't have an iPad, it probably costs $600 to $800. I'd load it up with all the space that you can get because the applications take more space over time. It'll be the best investment you ever made, so long as you use it. When I got an iPad, the first one came after the ABA Tech Show, and I was sitting there as a presenter, talking to other presenters. They're all going Google over this iPad is going to arrive, on Saturday, at 11 o'clock at their house. And I'm saying, what do you need the thing for? And everybody's telling me to get it. So I got it. It arrives. You know, it was cool to look at, you know, for a day or two. And then I put it in my dresser drawer and I never took it out for 2 or 3 months. So I couldn't see what it was for until these things, these applications started coming along. And then I started to realize, okay, I'm starting to use this thing. This is very interesting. And over the last 2 years, it's really become my go-to source for business development, how I can network online. The next application, a lot of this is going to revolve around applications, is Feedly. Google Reader is going away on June 30. So, you know, we don't know if you're not even going to be able to see your stuff there. We just don't know. But I would presume that all of your feeds that you have stored at Google Reader. So if you subscribe and you've got your feed sitting in Google Reader, and for me, Google Reader is kind of in that database. It's the place that holds all my feeds. I don't go to Google Reader to look at my feeds or to read anything, but it feeds them out to other readers. As it goes away, LexBlock can't work miracles. We can't say this is going to be the perfect one or this is going to do everything for you. We can just tell you what we're observing, what we're reading, and what our team members are using. What I'm seeing the most discussion around today is Feedly. Feedly can be used on a desktop. It will not be used. It cannot be used on Internet Explorer. You know, so don't get mad at Feedly. Get mad at, you know, the people that run your desktops in your office. You know, it can run on Firefox. It can run on Chrome. Those are the type of applications that people are browsing for. So Feedly says they're going to get to Internet Explorer, you know, but understand they're looking for more future than they are looking for past. And so Feedly will run on an iPad, it'll run on Android, it'll run on a desktop, on Chrome, and on Safari. But let's take a look at Feedly on an iPad. So I would go to Feedly, open it up, and it provides me a nice interface. I don't personally use Feedly, and I'll share, you know, with you what I use in a second. But imagine all my feeds coming in. And so my Google Reader has folders set up, and you'll be able to set up folders for any of these other things once your feeds are outside of Google Reader. But it organizes the information. And so what I can do is say, okay, do I want to see information on, you know, coming from Mashable? You know, what does it look like here? That's a pretty nice look. That's great. Do I want to see information coming from Google News, which is the Google alerts that I have set up on all different types of subjects? It's a nice interface, you know, that brings that information out. And with Feedly, I can go and I can read the content. Well, this page isn't found. Let's go back to something on the front. So now I'm reading all of the content without going out to the site, because that's what I want. I do not want to have to go to somebody's website or somebody's blog to read their content because they're trying to shout out what their name is. I already know that if somebody's nice enough to present information to me in a way that I like it, and it's easy for me to read, I like them more. And I'll remember who they are because it's coming into my feeds on a regular basis. And then I'm looking for the publisher, Mashable. I might be looking for Seth Figureman that you know wrote it. And then what I'm doing with that content now that it's here, is in Feedly, I can share it in any of these type of things. Do I want to share it on Facebook? Do I want to share it in Google Plus? Do I want to email it? All of these things, you know, are here for me. There's Twitter right there. So I can open that up and I can say, you know, Twitter now displays how well your tweets perform. So let's say that, gee, that's a tweet that I want to share. So I'm going to show you exactly what I do. What I'll do is go over here and Google Seth Figureman. There's Twitter comes up. So now I've seen Seth Figureman on Twitter, and I put my mouse over, you know, up in the browser bar, and it says select. I cut it. I go back to Feedly. And I'm going to put a little squiggly line at cancel it after that. Now I can send that out. That's how long it took me to share that. Now I trust him and I trust Mashable, so I wasn't looking closely at what's there. But that's an interesting thing to start talking about how to measure the impact of your tweets. So I trusted that could go out. Now why did I put Seth's name in it? So Seth can see me. Now, if I just sent it out, he couldn't have known that I tweeted it. By me putting his name in, it's an attaboy for him. I want to give the attribute to you, Seth. You wouldn't believe how many people I've met by virtue of giving the attribute to them. Kevin O'Keefe didn't write this piece of content. Seth Figureman at Mashable wrote it, and I want Seth to note it. So if I share something from the New York Times, and the New York Times reporter comes back and gives me a thank you, they appreciate it. You guys are in positions of influence as lawyers. You know, I saw somebody today write about somebody introduce themselves as, I'm just a lawyer. Well, no, you're not just a lawyer. You are a lawyer. You're doing great stuff for people. You should take pride in the work that you do. Your firm is growing. You're blogging. You're creating influence. For reporters, it's a big deal when lawyers start to share their information. Why? Because people don't get their information by going to the newspaper or websites anymore. A significant number of people in this country are getting their information from people they trust, not a real logical scenario. Why wouldn't we go to people we trust? Historically, the Seattle Times was that trusted source here in Seattle for curating news and information, because not everybody could identify and share information across something called the internet to a computer in everybody's pocket. Well, today, you sharing it is a trusted source because you cover this information. So just sharing it alone is enough context for people to have that they might want to read it. And it's how you build social media equity. If you're sharing information and you're not pushing out your own information, it's very, very unfortunate, and it sickens me to see law firms that somehow they've been told to push their own content out on Twitter, or give attaboys or attagirls to their lawyers about awards and whatever. I don't need that type of stuff. I mean, if somebody at a cocktail party started walking up to you and said, just a second, I got a list here, I want to read some accolades that I've been involved in. You might have lost your screen, and I'm not sure why. Let me go back a second and see what went on. It should be up in a second. So you're seeing my screen again. But it's other people's stuff that builds that social media equity. That way, when you do a blog post, maybe you shared 15 other things that weren't yours, and now you want to share a blog post. It's not like, look at this. It comes into the flow of all the things that you shared, how nice you've been to share things. You know what happens? You have a lot of Twitter followers that follow you because you're an intelligence agent. You're not sharing their stuff. Now they share your blog post. You know what happens? Your blog becomes more influential online because people are sharing your information. You're not trying to figure out how to market your site. You got people sharing your content. You have the social networks and Google starting to understand that you're influential. The other thing you can do at Feedly, and I think it's a good application for many of you to use, is just drop in a feed on your own. So if you said, gee, how do I get to Kevin O'Keefe's blog or subscribe to that? Let's say I want to just put in real lawyers have blogs. Do a search and it'll come up. There it is. So now I'm going to add it. And let's say that I wanted to add that into a category. So I said, well, that should go into law. So now I've added that into a category in that channel. It says success. Real lawyers have blogs. Just add it to your law category. So you'll be able to go and search on different types of things. You could even put in, cut and paste in a URL. So if you went over to Google News and did a search and went to the bottom and say, okay, where's the RSS feed? You'll create an RSS feed. You could cut and paste that link right into Feedly and pull up that information. So it's a really nice application to use. And I think we're going to see a lot of lawyers gravitate to that. Feedly's reached out to me, wants to talk about how we can introduce it to more lawyers. See what we got. Probably should have wrote them down as opposed to put them on a keynote. The keynote isn't going to do much for you. They just have a list of them. Mr. Reader is I've got to get this up for full screen. Just a second. So you're seeing the background. You seen my screen, Lena?
Yes.
Okay. This is Mr. Reader. Mr. Reader is an application that I've been using now for about a couple of years. Tom Mayel, an attorney consultant in the e-discovery arena and document processing arena, turned me onto it at the Texas Bar annual meeting a couple of years ago. And since that time, I probably use Mr. Reader more than any application that I use. There's how it's spelled, just Mr. Reader. There was a concern that when Google Reader went down, that the feeds coming into Mr. Reader may not work. You're going to be prompted still by these applications. You go and put in your Gmail address and your Gmail password because it's accessing your feeds. from Google Reader. It's still going on. But let me just show you what I do with Mr. Reader. Don't worry if it says, gee, there's 4,000 in or something like that. It's like having the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. Let's say there's 3,000 articles in the crazy thing this morning. You're going to say you read it. You may only read 3 articles and skim the rest. It's that type of thing. Right now, you're seeing the content get refreshed. Going around a circle is saying, okay, let's pull in the information on these subjects. So I monitor things on Facebook. I monitor multiple sources. Now, this is sources. Let's look at the sources. Fred Wilson, a venture capitalist in New York. Mark Cuban, Brian Solis, Buzz Machine. These don't all have content in them. I may have seen it earlier today and shared it or read the things I wanted to read. But these are all the sources that are coming in. So these are the people that I have found, reliable and authoritative on the things that I want to learn about, because I can't learn without reading other people's information. I have a separate folder set up for Mashable. I think Mashable is a really good publication just to get your mind far out from the law. If you sit there and you go to legal conferences about how to do internet marketing or blogging and whatnot, it's okay, but it is lawyers, so we're always going to be 5, 6 years behind. So you're really not seeing the future. You want to subscribe to a publication, they'll give you the future, and they'll just open your eyes to some of it. Might be crazy things out there. Mashable is a really good one. It's very well done. It's very well edited, run out of New York and the UK. But I could, here's an article in Supreme Court, scientist, whatever. I could read the information right here. It's very, very nice in Mr. Reader. And then again, look at all the places I can share that content if I want to. And I have settings, on my iPad for Mr. Reader. What services do I want to use? I want to share it on LinkedIn. So if I want to share that on LinkedIn and I wanted to put in the text, that image will display and go out to my network on LinkedIn with the comment that I had. And, just parenthetically, and we'll talk about LinkedIn in a second, but LinkedIn today, I'm not talking about the term LinkedIn today as a newspaper that's almost like that on their site or magazine. But once LinkedIn improved its mobile interface about a month ago, they had not done anything with mobile in 2 years, since 2011. The interaction that's going on LinkedIn when you share content into your network, so long as you've been working on building a network on LinkedIn, people that you connect with, and connect with them in a way where you send them personal notes and respond to them when they connect with you, it's taken off. It's taking off. So you want to find a great way to get to meet people occasionally. Share what you see on LinkedIn, and look at it this way. It's almost like being in a grocery store line. Maybe you haven't worked with a client, that you work with occasionally in a year, and you're in one line at the grocery store, and you look over, and there they are. And after you bag your groceries and you walk out the end, so guys, great to see you. We haven't got together in a long time. We should get together for coffee. Would it be that strange if they gave you a call, in a few days and said, hey, I've been meaning to get a hold of you. I really should. Let's set up a time and get together. It's that type of social engagement and networking that can go on. You also have the ability to see who liked your content. You might want to drop them a note. You can see who's commented on your network or in your content at LinkedIn. So you're doing that. But you didn't go to LinkedIn to add that content. I could do it right here. And that's what's so slick. Your iPad is this thing in the palm of your hands or on your desk where you can share information and comment on it. Is there a question, Leah?
Yeah, we've got 2 questions. One from Philip Heinerman asking about the interface, and I believe he means to show the iPad. And then Aaron Bailey was asking about Google Reader.
What's the question about Google Reader?
Google Reader going away at the end of the month.
Yeah, it's going away at the end of the month, and what I'm talking about are alternatives that you can be using. Lexbot's going to get out of communication on this, but I think the best applications that for Google Reader and iPad, and I think you're going to be faced with challenges in the office because it's just how we are as lawyers. We're lawyers going to say, well, I don't want to have to get an iPad. Well, you don't have to have a cop. You don't have to have a cell phone. You don't even need to have an office. We could all practice in our basements. There's a price of doing business and business development. If you want to arm your lawyers with something valuable, they should be sitting here with an iPad if they're going to be networking and consuming content. On desktops, there are readers that you can use. There's something called Reader, but we're going to get out an email to everybody on this, giving you a list of alternatives. It's going to be a little bit of a struggle, but for me, hey, it's a little bit stressful, but I can't worry about it. What can I do about it? I can't worry about things I can't control. Google Reader's going away. is that Mr. Reader will still work for me. I'm going to be using Flipboard, which I'm going to show you. The interface that I'm using, if you want to drop me an email, kevin@lexblog.com, I'll get you an email back as to what it is. Something that we just began to test yesterday. But give me an email on that, kevin@lexblog.com. But that's Mr. Reader, and that's why it's so valuable. I could star something and say, okay, it's starred. Now, if I want to go back to my interface, I could say, what's the starred content that I could go do? And for blogging, the way I blog is I don't know what I'm going to blog until I see what I read. And so I'm not thinking about some, oh my God, what am I going to write about next Saturday or that type of thing. I tweet. I share information. Those people that follow me on Twitter, sometimes they might see tweets come out, 20 a day, if I'm doing a fair amount of reading. Those are my notes for blogging. Those are my notes. So all I got to do is go back into Twitter and look at what was there. The next application we're going to look at is Flipboard. And I believe that Flipboard is going to revolutionize publishing. It's run by some very, very talented people down in Silicon Valley. It's very well funded. You've got publications like the New York Times, Financial Times, BBC is just coming out with 3 new business sites that they want to make sure they run through Flipboard. Look at the interface for this crazy thing. I mean, it is beautiful, So if I want to look at the LexBlog network, right now, what are lawyers writing about on LexBlog? What if I wanted to, network with some of them or share what they're sharing so they take notice of me? I can flip through this, and I can see, here's a post, Florida bans texting and driving. It's popular on Flipboard. It's trending on Flipboard because people have found that to be very good. Can you see why images are important on your blog? This Boston Urissa doesn't look quite as cool as this thing called text. I've started to use images on my blog, and you start to see it. They're 500 pixels wide, and I put them right at the top of the post. Why did I do it? Because I saw Mashable doing it. I figured Mashable's a heck of a lot smarter than I am. And what I started to realize, my posts look dynamite on Flipboard on an iPhone, because then the whole picture shows up with the title of the post in the front of it. It's stunning. But look at the content as we browse through this. Another one, popular on Flipboard. Look how titles are so important here. We got many lawyers that want to write a small paragraph in a title, and it looks ridiculous. These got to be 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 words at the most. Because look how they're going to look here. I'm skimming through it. Think of your content not coming to your blog. I don't care what you do to tell people, we got to get more traffic to our blog, we'll get more traffic to your blog. You don't care about more traffic to your blog. You care about the engagement that you're doing out there. And people are going to be using these type of devices because it's so nice and simple. They like your blog, they're going to subscribe to it. It's going to come into a reader. It might come into places like Flipboard. Now, what Flipboard allows me to do is get any information. So I went to Notre Dame, so I can subscribe to certain feeds coming to Notre Dame if I want to flip through it and I have the time. It curates the cover stories for me. And where it's getting information from is not only my feeds that I subscribe to by RSS, it's getting them from Twitter and it's getting them from Facebook. It's identified my social circle. And then it's going out to the social circles of the people that I trust. So all the time it's getting better and better and better and better at delivering me the content that I'm most likely to be interested in from people that I'm most likely to trust. How cool is that? You can wonder why newspapers are trying to struggle to compete with this type of environment because their content's coming here, plus all of the information is from so many other places, and the content that's coming from traditional resources is coming because people have shared it on Twitter, on Facebook, and on a blog. And I can do searches on any type of subject. So if I put in Seattle, it's going to say browse stories and images and videos that Flipboard's going to curate for me on Seattle. It's going to say, do you want to monitor Seattle on Twitter or Google Plus or see YouTube videos or pictures on Instagram? So these are things that you can't make a note of and figure out overnight. You can't say, oh my God, he's talking so fast, like drinking out water off a fire hose. You got to go play with this stuff. You got to be willing to experiment. You don't grow unless you're willing to experiment outside your comfort zone and do things that are scary. But it's really not that scary to organize content and read it on an iPad. Not that scary. And it isn't even that scary to begin to share it. So Flipboard, once you log in, you put in your feeds. wonderful environment for reading information. Somebody asked me in Indiana, they said, well, Kevin, you've got these various applications you're talking about. What do you think you're going to do as you go forward? My gut tells me that I'm going to go Flipboard. And the reason isn't the interface. The reason is the discovery of information that I might want to see. Rather than Mr. Reader, which is great. It's Kevin O'Keefe says, give me these feeds and give me these subjects and give me them all. And I'll skim through it, see what I might like, see what I might want to share, see what I might want to blog about. That's a lot of heavy lifting, really, when you think about it. Not allowing the machines out there to identify what I might be interested in. What Flipboard's doing over time, it's really leveraging my social circles. I've been out and I've networked with a lot of people online. I've met a lot of people face to face. It's saying, Kevin, here's what you might want to discover. Here's the information you may want to get. And when you think about it with a newspaper, one of the things we're missing when we funnel just the information we want, just the sources, just the subject, is we're missing that discovery. You don't know what article you might read in your local newspaper until you open it. You wouldn't say going into the newspaper, I got to read an article on this issue on Syria. But if you open it and the title was interesting enough to start to read it, it did look interesting, you'd read it. So you've discovered information. So my gut tells me that long term, I'll be over in an application that saves me from doing the heavy lifting, that allows me to discover, and that's okay. Because 15 years ago, I wouldn't have been worried about getting everything on every subject or every source and having all into one device. I would take something like Flipboard, and that would be beyond my wildest dreams. Next application that I'd like to go to is Zeit. Many of you might use Zeit already, and it's been very, very, very popular for lawyers. What Zeit is it's a Pandora for content. So Pandora for music gets you the music you'd like to hear. So you put in Bruce Springsteen, it brings in comparable music to Bruce Springsteen. You get to say thumbs up, thumbs down. Zeit does that same thing. So what Zeit is doing is it's bringing information in. You're seeing a similar look of Flipboard. Zeit was bought by CNN, so I'm not convinced the innovation will happen quite as fast coming out from CNN as a place that's run by some innovative engineers in Silicon Valley. But look at how nice the information is again to read. So here's Harvard Business Review. Do they care about making me come to the Harvard Business Review with all their ads and all that type of stuff? Absolutely not, because they want me to read the content and information. But what I can do is give it the thumbs up. Do I like this source? Do I like the author? And also, do I want to share it? So look at all the places I can share information from Zeit. So again, I'm not trying to spam it. I'm sharing. And I'm sure there's some of you that are asking, well, that's just not me. I don't want to look like an idiot just putting stuff out on Twitter that I'm reading. It's okay. It's how we as a society now, or many of us in society, get our information. And we appreciate the fact that other people share information. And so it also will help you tremendously if you're doing it on a niche, be identified as a subject matter authority. So Zeit is a great publication. You can do searches on different types of things. So let's see if we did something on FMLA here and see if we found anything. We might not. We might. Nope, nothing's coming out. But let's say on healthcare. They're going to continue to expand the things that they offer. If I could spell it would be better. Not sure what's going on here. Zeit might not be working right now, but believe me, this actually does work. So if I search Packers, it used to come down with a list of Green Bay Packers and all that type of stuff. I'm not sure what's going on right now with that, whether their search is down or whatever. But you go to Zeit, you do a search on the subject that you'd like to see information on, and the information, it'll come up with, here's various channels that we've set up on that subject, and that information is set up for you. So that's how I've set up channels on Zeit on all these subjects. College basketball, Facebook, Green Bay Packers, journalism, legal services, LinkedIn, marketing. So now, if I want to get information on LinkedIn, there it is. So you could actually set up a channel. I'm sure the search would work. FMLA, healthcare reform. You're in a particular city and you're doing business. If I want to put in Chattanooga, You're going to see news and information that relates to Chattanooga that you may want to share. Imagine finding good information from a Chattanooga Business Journal. You share it, you put in the Chattanooga Business Journal's reporter's Twitter handle right after it, all inside the site. You share it, you get a thank you note from the business reporter. You then say, hey, we should get together sometime for coffee. You know, that's what life is made of. That's how this stuff can work. So I'm not saying any of this stuff means, well, gee, I saw you share some information on Twitter, and they tweet back that I want to hire you. I'm not implying that. This is an accelerator of relationships, an accelerator of your reputation. But I wouldn't do it any other way than be able to have information this way. So there's healthcare. There's healthcare, reform. So these are terms that I've played around with. There's Nashville. So if I'm a business person in Nashville, there's the information that I may want to see. You're going to see, all different types of things. I want to see information on publishing. I get it that way. So if I actually want to one day say, I'm kind of bored using Flipboard, or I don't want to use Mr. Reader, I'm going to go over to Zeit, and I'm going to see what tips they have on blogging that they've curated from various sources. I hit that, and I can see if there's anything that I think would be, worthwhile to share with you guys and my followers. Again, I hit that information, I open it up, all the information is right here. Didn't go out to the site, it was so easy to read. With people that are getting information the old way, don't have an iPad, they're clicking on something, they get an email, they go look at it, they browse out on the site, got all the ads around, you got somebody's logo that you don't like, you got green aqua colors that you hate. This is just an eloquent way to be able to consume information and then be able to share it in different types of ways. Next application that I want to show you, and again, you can see we're just running through applications. We talked about Flipboard, LinkedIn, and iPad. We're just going to quickly, go through this, but it's not perfect yet. LinkedIn's working out some bugs, but they've updated a couple times since they did the most recent update. So I'm just opening up what my LinkedIn looks like when I open it up, and it sure doesn't look like, a directory or a list of people. You can see that the thing is a little bit slow. It might be slow because I have a lot of context. But there's the front page of LinkedIn. What's going on? Who am I meeting with at these days? People I may know down here. Who's viewed my profile, in the last, hour or two? That's interesting. What's the news and information that I might be interested in seeing? I can read all that information here. If I want to see, people that have people that have joined groups, everything's right here. So it's an invaluable piece of information. I want to share information with my network, I can do that. Very, very slick. If I want to look at messages or updates, they're all in here. Very nice application. Arguably, somebody could sit here with LinkedIn and say, okay, I want to be able to network with people based on information that they're sharing. Also, LinkedIn, very nice on an iPhone. The other application that you want to get now is LinkedIn Contacts. It's just Contacts as it's spelled. Get on your iPhone, get on your Android. Because what it does is, if I'm looking up your name, how do I get a hold of you? I am not going to Google. And I'm sure it's not going to your website to try and find your telephone number buried in your profile, in a browser interface that I can barely read. Go into LinkedIn Contacts, and I'm just doing a search for your name, and up it comes. And I would sure hope that your cell phone and that your direct line is there, plus your email, because I need to be able to get a hold of you. Do not view the world as I don't want to put my cell phone out and my telephone number out so that people, somehow I'm going to get more spam, and I don't want to put out my email because I'm going to get more spam. What you're really doing is you're not paying common courtesy to the people that you would like to be able to get a hold of you, whether it's existing clients, prospective clients, or business associates. Make it easy. And Bob Woodward has his telephone number in the white pages, in Washington, D.C. Why? Because he wants to make it easy for people to get a hold of him. You're not busier than Bob Woodward as far as the number of people that are looking to get a hold of you. So think of it that way. Is there a question, Mike? What's the question? You just
The question is from Jacqueline Matarang. Can Zeit, so it's about Zeit, be another source for lawyers for content who are blogging, used to curate relevant articles based on key terms like healthcare reform.
Is it? If the question was, is Zeit a good way to curate information so that lawyers can blog about it? Absolutely. Do not look at your blog as your opportunity to talk about content that's in your head. You can do it that way. There's two ways to blog. One's based on experiences, and others based on referencing. So you have experiential blogging and you have referential blogging. Okay, I'm going to tell you about the situation. I'm going to give you an update on this case or an update on this regulation. That's great, but that's reporting. You better damn well be on top of that stuff all the time if you're going to do that type of blogging. Then there's referential. It's a giant conversation out there, and I want to be among the thought leaders. Rather than publish my blog out in the cornfield and try to get people to come out to the cornfield from the city where they're all located to read my blog, I'm going to go to the intersection where they're at. The only way you can get to the intersection is by joining the conversation. The conversation is where content is written and content is shared. So if you look at something like Zeit, that's the thought leaders. That's where Zeit is determined based on the influence, how often their content is shared, how often their content is cited. These might be influential sources, and you're going to have to fine tune it. There are some things on Zeit that aren't so great. So I found that Flipboard worked a little bit better for me. As far as popularity, what I see lawyers sharing content on Twitter, I'm seeing a lot more Zeit than I am Flipboard or anything else. And the way you can tell is based on the URL shortener. So if you see something that says like zi.te or something like that, you'll know that it's being shared from Zeit. So, and it also feels really good if you find that you tweeted a blog post, and about 6 minutes later you see people tweeting it coming from Zeit. So you go, wow, I must have authority in this particular niche. So when people are trying to measure the success of their blogs with the number of email subscribers and the number of traffic to their site, it's like so 1999. Why not measure it with how much influence you've demonstrated over time? That means how often is my content getting up on Zeit? How often is it getting on Flipboard? It's pulling in information that's coming from influential sources. You want to be influential. The way you're influential is you get out and you engage, people begin to cite and share your content. You want people to cite and share your content, you better start citing and sharing other people's content so you're interesting, you're in the conversation. Next.
And Kevin, we do have a question from Tom Kane. He says, how about allowing push notifications from LinkedIn and others, or is that the point?
I'm not sure what push notifications mean. If you're talking about automatically pushing out blog posts, I don't do it. I find it unseemly. Other people do it. So I wouldn't push automatically content out. I was really happy when LinkedIn took away automatically feeding my blog and other people's blogs out to LinkedIn. I was really happy when they took away automatically pushing my tweets out in front of other people. And that's like everybody just screaming at each other. Think about it. But LinkedIn wasn't very social at the beginning. It was just a directory of news or just a directory of people and their contact information. But imagine all the people now are becoming social, and everybody says, well, just a second, we all got low ones. And I got my tweets I got to shout out, and I got my blog posts I got to shout out, because I'm being told to do this. It's great you're signing up for services to spread your content. One costs $10,000 and one costs $13,000. And I see it in the list every time of go out and use social media and then you buy the service to distribute your content. I don't know. Good for those companies that have been able to get law firms to pay to distribute content because now they're blogging. But I sure as heck wouldn't measure success by distributing my content to people. Some type of push notification that's out for my content on LinkedIn, Facebook.
So, Kevin, we've got some clarification from Tom about being asked to allow push notifications. And actually, Tom, I'm going to unmute you and allow you to ask your question directly.
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, hi there.
Hey, Tom, can you hear me? Go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can't hear us. But I'm not sure I understand the question. If you want to ping me, I can respond. But if there's a service that says you want to allow your things to be pushed here or there, and I don't understand it. And I can only tell you what I do and what I would advise people to do. On my blog post, I would share information to go out. As far as push notifications that come out at me, I allow that. So for example, on my iPad, if somebody has asked to connect, a little thing scrolls over the top very nicely. It comes up and says that. Same on my iPhone. when somebody's commented on something I've shared on Facebook, a little thing comes up to do that. I'm sure it's not going to have a ding or something like that because it's really annoying. But it doesn't bother me too much that those are coming up and saying somebody liked the item you shared on LinkedIn, somebody commented on the item that you shared on LinkedIn, somebody commented on a post that you put on Facebook. Those come up very eloquently right on my iPad screen, a little thing that turns over on the top. Same thing with the New York Times. New York Times gives me my breaking news to my iPhone and my iPad on somebody dies, there's been a catastrophe, the little thing rolls over, it just gives me that news very nicely and very eloquently. And I like
Kevin?
that, you know.
Kevin?
The next thing I was talking about is WordPress. I blog from my iPad. I don't blog from my, I've got a MacBook Air that I use that's plugged into a 30-inch, monitor here in my office. But about 90 times that I'm blogging, I'm blogging on WordPress and on my app. And so I open it up, and this allows me to get an interface, and I can, key away. I can copy and paste content in there. I can go over and say, okay, I got to find an image. I'm just sharing you what I do for images. Everybody does everything else. But I go to Flickr, and now we're still back to that little search. But I go to Flickr, and I go to the Creative Commons section. So what I do is I go and I hit this little thing that'll just say, come up with another search window, and that'll be for, I can get to advanced search, see the little thing for advanced search, I hit that, and then, if I want an image of Seattle, I just put in what I'm talking about. If it's about networking, it's about relationship, I just put in that word, see what I get. And I put only search with Creative Commons license and find content to use commercially, hit the search, and up comes the content. And I know this takes a little bit of time, but my post might look a little bit better than other people's. So let's say that this is a piece of content that I like. I can hit that. It's going to come up and it's going to say, what size do you want? This is all being done, in an iPad. And I can say, give me the size of the picture. And then I can copy the picture and I'll give an attribution on the bottom of it. So let's say I was doing a medium there. I can save that image, and I can then bring that image right over to the WordPress environment. So I say, see, there's a picture, add the photo from my library, bring this picture over, make it that size. It's now uploaded. I can say, okay, don't publish this live, mark it draft, save it, and now that's sitting in a draft post, that I've got in here without a title. And there's the picture, and I can type, then I would type below it. So you can start to see how powerful this thing is, and all your links, as far as your text. If I want to highlight that or make it a link, all I'm doing is highlighting that, making a link, that comes. Now it's a little bit clumsier, but I just like this iPad because that's where I'm at most of the time. Next application that I want to show you is, let's see. I'm not going to show you Twitterrific because Twitterrific right now has been great for me for about the last 3 years. Wonderful as far as how it groups things. But the API, the old API at Twitter turned it off yesterday. So it's affecting a number of applications with Twitter feeds. Talk about Twitter and Twitter lists briefly. Let's go to Twitter. And Twitter is a nice app on, on your iPad. I'm probably going to be using it more often now that Twitterrific is not working. There's another one that people use called Twitter lists. There's lots of different things. It really depends on what it is you like to use personally. But here's Twitter right here. It's just like your desktop. If I want to see the people that exchange information back at me, it maybe add, connect, maybe. Come on.
So here's the things that come back at me. That I can look at. The Twitter list that I would suggest you set up your Twitter list on your desktop. Now, Twitter lists are you don't need to follow people to get their information, and you don't have to commit a fire hose tweets coming out. You just have a list set up. So if I want to go down and see my list that I've set up, there's lists that I have. And so if I want to see what people are tweeting from the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, Financial Times, there it is. So if I'm a lawyer and let's go back to Chattanooga, I would be insane. Not to spend 2 hours on my computer going through the business section, whatever section is relevant to the type of work I do. At the mainstream newspaper, at the Business Journal, find their Twitter handles. They don't have a Twitter handle site. A lot of our smarter to do it. Just Google their name and find it. Put in Jim Roberts Twitter. You'll find it. Who do you follow on Twitter? Look at the publications you read, and then look at the reporters, the authors, and whatnot. Just Google their names and put them into a Twitter list under a particular type of subject, because you can't follow all the information that are coming from all different sources. And you don't look at these Twitter lists every day, but they're not bad. They're kind of fun. If I want to look at right now, what are people tweeting on the Lexbox network? It's not perfect yet, but I can go and say on the Lexbox network, that I'm curating content from, and if I don't have you in here, you can do a search for my. You can go to Kevin O'Keefe Twitter and find my list. But what are people saying? On the Lexbox network right now. There it is. Now, on the weekends, they might be saying things about sports and stuff with their family. It's okay for me to respond to that, or retweet something they said that they might like. It's the stuff life is made of, doing this type of thing. Next app I want to talk about is Facebook.
And Kevin, we did have a question from Oliver Thonen. He's saying, are aggregators like Zeit and Flipboard competitors to legal publishing aggregators like JD Supra and Lexology?
Everything's everything for information. People don't know. Is NBC a competitor to CBS? Really is. Depends on what your likes are and what your desires are and how you want to consume information. I don't. I believe people should take. It all depends. I don't want a fire hose of information that somebody else suggested that I get that other people bought. Some of these places are getting their information because law firms paid them to distribute it. Imagine in the New York Times if everybody said, well, you know what this is? This is companies that pay the New York Times X thousands of dollars a month, and then we push their content out to people, and then you make sure you damn well read the damn thing. It'd be a little bit wild. So I'd rather have my information coming to me from a place I trust. We're at the end of an hour. There's two things that I just wanted to make sure that I talked about. One is Google+, one is Facebook. As far as Google+, you don't have to spend a lot of time with Google+, but you've got to use the damn thing because you need to share information into Google+, because you need to increase your authority with Google. We're going away from the days of your traditional search engine, go get links from various sites. It's still valuable, but we're going to go into having social circles. And so I don't browse here. It's an eloquent interface. Look at the damn thing on an iPad. Beautiful. Maybe prettier than anything that I can get. But I'm not sure that everybody goes here to browse content here. But I do share information into Google+ 2 or 3 times a week. It's just different information. I don't say, okay, I got this post up. It's got to go to LinkedIn. It's got to go to Twitter. It's got to go over here. It's got to go to Google+. It's got to go to Facebook. That is crazy. It is what I feel at that moment in time, or what I feel that audience has become over time. But from Google+, I get a Google+ account. I fill it out, and I would occasionally share content from these various applications and the content you read into Google+. My Google+ is a little bit more quirky. I share things that are a little bit crazier. This morning I shared something that said, 8 social networks that you wouldn't believe are out there. Topping it was Date My Pet, and only for farmers. I put that up and somebody plus one it within a few minutes, and I saw that come across with a little bubble. The other is Facebook. The last is Facebook. See if I got it open here. But Facebook is a really nice interface in mobile now. They trailed before, but it's real nice now. It's very eloquent to browse it. How do I use Facebook? Well, it's better than what's on TV, and it's entertainment. I don't look at it all the time. I don't have it ding me in the phone. But anybody that tells you that Facebook is for personal and LinkedIn is for professional, that's a bunch of baloney. Because you are who you are. Relationships are who we are. You as a person, are in relationships. You wouldn't go up to a client on the weekend that approached you in the grocery store and say, whoa, wait a second. This is personal time right now, and I don't interact with people that are clients in my personal time. You could do that, and there are probably lawyers that are that type of thing. They just have less work, and they don't have as many relationships with other people. So I use my Facebook to share things that I think are interesting. I'll share pictures. Maybe there's Tom Mayal, the guy that turned me on to, Mr. Reader. A kind of funny picture somebody took of him, and he shared it. But I browsed this, not at work. I might take a break and see it, but I think it's really invaluable. And the mobile interface is just really nice. So there's the notifications that I might have get. I put on a comment this morning. That Gonzaga is building a $60 million university center, and I said, well, gee, having 4 kids going there for 4 years, maybe they could name a door after me. And Mark Beast, responded, maybe they'll keep Portal. I thought that was kind of fun. Here's Bruce Johnson up here. If I do a search on Bruce, if you want to follow somebody that's doing a wonderful job as a lawyer using Facebook, I could think of nobody better than Bruce Johnson. I'm going on 58. Bruce is probably in his early 60s. But he's a First Amendment lawyer and advertising lawyer for Davis Strikes Maine. He has a who's who of media clients. And the way he stays in touch with them and builds relationships with them is Facebook. And he never asked for anybody's permission at Davis Strikes Maine if he could start using social media, back in, I don't know how many years ago, 5 or 6 years ago with Facebook. So he'll share everything from First Amendment issues to media issues. What he started to do is he started to give attaboys and attagirls to his clients. His clients really liked it. So I think he's got like 1,500 people, mostly from the media industry, that he's connected with. But he'll also share pictures of, grandkids. He'll share, all different types of things. If anybody has any questions, as we're 5 after the hour, just drop me an email. I'm going to put it up here on the screen, but it's kevin@lexblog.com. You want to Google Kevin O'Keefe's cell phone, Kevin O'Keefe's telephone number, Kevin O'Keefe Twitter, Kevin O'Keefe LinkedIn. Everything I have as far as the ability to get a hold of me is online. I think we're going to do an encore presentation of this webinar because I got a lot of requests from people. Oh, last thing that I'll mention, Buffer. Buffer allows you to buffer your tweets, buffer your LinkedIn posts, buffer your Facebook posts. That way, if I'm in my bed at 11 o'clock at night, I can read information, and as opposed to as opposed to
Hi, everyone. We had a little battery issue. We're getting Kevin plugged in here for the last little bit.
Can I just talk?
Yeah.
The last one I was just mentioning was Buffer. What you'll do with Buffer is you go to buffer.com or bufferapp.com and you go register. And what you can do is you can set the number of links that you want to go out at various times, things you share. So for me, I just bought the paid version. I don't know what I pay, whether it's $10 a month, $20 a month, whatever it is, it's worth it. And I schedule out a whole day. So I put in times that might run from 7 in the morning Pacific time to 7 at night Pacific time. Doesn't mean you're going to see stuff
from me at these times. It just means if I sit down and I read 5 articles and I share, I read a bunch of articles and I share 5, they're not going to all come out in the next, 2 minutes. They might space out over the next 30 minutes. So if I put something in at 1 o'clock, another thing in at 1:02, that second thing may come out at 1:10 or 1:15, just to give you a little bit of breathing room so people don't think I'm pounding on them for content. So Buffer app is invaluable. And what will happen is in Mr. Reader, and it's one reason I like it, I can hit Buffer as opposed to Twitter. And then it'll say, do you want to send it out on Twitter or whatever, or LinkedIn or Facebook? I then put in the text just like I would in Twitter, and then it buffers the tweet, if you will. It buffers it. I can do that on Flipboard, and I can do it on Zeit, but I use email, and then you have a buffer email address that you send it to. All of these type of things, Google is a wonderful thing. So if you say, how do I share something on Flipboard on Buffer? You'll get an answer immediately. You could probably find it in YouTube, a video. But Buffer is a really valuable app that I use all the time, and I think it's worthwhile. You're not auto-tweeting with Buffer. It's not that type of thing. You're basically just saying, hey, if I read at night, I want it to go out the next morning, rather than have it go out at 2 o'clock in the morning East Coast time, it'll go out at the times you set it for. That's all the things that I wanted to cover for you today. We'll do an encore presentation. If you want to reach out to me for questions, it's kevin@lexblog.com.